How many times have you scrolled through, endless online terms just hitting, I agree, especially when it's about your money, it's this universal digital thing, right? But what if there was actually a clear ethical roadmap for all these complex online dealings?
That's a really profound question, isn't it?
Mm.
The digital world, it often feels like it's just making up its own rules.
Yeah.
But imagine having principles refined over centuries actually applied to today's cutting-edge online finance. That's exactly the deep dive we're taking today.
Yeah, you've really hit on something crucial there. Our mission today is to explore how Islamic legal principles, Shari'ah, provide this robust and honestly surprisingly modern framework for navigating financial transactions online. And our single authoritative source for this is Sharia Standard number 38. It's specifically titled Financial Transactions on the Internet.
Right, and this standard, it came out March 15th, 2009. That was after a really meticulous development process. It offers remarkable clarity, and you'll find it's full of, well, unexpected insights.
Exactly. So our goal is to unpack the standard, pull out those key insights, the practical rules that govern everything from, say, online contracts to data protection. It's all designed to ensure fairness, ethical conduct in your digital financial life. So yeah, prepare for some real aha moments as we reveal how these timeless principles just seamlessly adapt to the online world. Okay, so let's peel back the layers. Start at the very beginning. What makes an online business, okay, permissible under Sharia? You might think, brand new digital space, totally new rules, but the standards approach is actually pretty insightful about what's allowed online.
Yeah, maybe one of the most foundational things and surprisingly adaptable is just the baseline principle itself. Creating and operating commercial websites is, well, overwhelmingly permissible under Sharia. It's not about rigid restrictions. It's more of a broad allowance. It kind of echoes that general Islamic legal idea that, all transactions are allowed unless specifically prohibited. The real aha here is seeing how that openness actually helps a vibrant digital economy, but still keeps those core ethics. The crucial thing, though, the caveat, is that these sites have to be completely free from anything forbidden. So no promoting prohibited goods or services, and no using forbidden tools, even if the main activity seems okay.
Right, that distinction is key. It's not just what you sell, but how you run things. So, okay, groundwork laid. Let's get to the core of online finance, the contracts themselves. For a lot of people, the idea of signing a legally binding agreement online, it still feels a bit, well, virtual. Does Sharia Standard 38 really confirm the full validity of things like opening a bank account, making a transfer online, and what makes these digital deals as solid as the old-fashioned ones?
Well, the standard is very clear on this. Most financial contracts, opening accounts, transfers, commercial agreements, yeah, they can absolutely be validly done online. The power behind these digital agreements, it comes from the fact that they're subject to the exact same general rules that govern traditional financial transactions in Islamic law. The core principles don't change just because the medium does.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this next point is really fascinating because it shows just how adaptable these principles are. We rarely think about our internet service provider, our ISP, as anything more than, another bill, right? But how does Sharia actually classify the service an ISP provides, and why does that classification even matter?
It's quite clever, actually, how the standard looks at this specific service. Providing internet connection, say, by a financial institution, it's considered an ijara contract,
Right.
which basically means it's a contract of leasing or hiring. So instead of just buying a utility, you're kind of leasing a service for a fee, like leasing office space, but for connectivity. And that classification, it changes the dynamic.
Leasing. Okay, that's a really interesting way to frame it. From just the utility to a leased service. It makes me wonder, though, if I'm leasing something, the owner usually has responsibilities, right? Beyond just giving me the thing. Does this ijara classification for ISPs mean they have unique obligations too?
It absolutely does, yes. The standard points this out quite significantly. Institutions offering internet services, they have to take all possible precautions to stop users from engaging in illicit activities on their network. It really underscores this ethical responsibility providers have to make sure their infrastructure isn't, misused for forbidden stuff. It's a proactive stance, deeply ethical on digital accountability.
Okay, proactive responsibility. Now let's move to the absolute heart of any transaction,
Yeah.
the contract. Historically, contracts often needed physical presence, right?
Yeah.
A meeting of the minds in the same room. That's the Majlis al-Aqd. How does Sharia take this ancient idea and apply it to the internet, which is, decentralized and often not real time?
This is where the standard really shines in its adaptation. It's quite practical. For contracts made through live voice or video chat online, think Zoom, Teams, whatever, they're treated just like contracts between people who are physically present.
All right.
So if you're on that video call, that is your virtual meeting room, your majlis à la coup. And just like a handshake deal, the communication needs to be continuous, focused on the agreement. That's the unity of session. You can't just, wander off mid-sentence for 10 minutes for coffee and expect the offer to still be good when you get back. It keeps the transaction serious, ensures both sides are really present and committed in that digital moment. Minor interruptions, the usual stuff, that's okay.
Okay, that's clear for real-time stuff. But what about things that aren't immediate? Which is probably, let's be honest, way more common online, like emails or filling out website forms.
Right, good point. That's where the comparison shifts. Contracts made through email, written chat, website forms, those are seen as contracts between absent parties. It's more like contracting by old-fashioned letter. In that case, the contract session, the majlis, it starts when the ijab, the offer, actually reaches the recipient, and it ends when the qabul, the acceptance, is issued. Or, of course, if the offer pulls back their offer before acceptance happens.
That clarity is super helpful. What if, say, an offer wants to give someone time to think it over? They put a time limit on their offer. Can they still change their mind before time's up?
No, they can't. If an offer specifies a time limit for their offer to stay valid, they are bound by that. They cannot withdraw that offer during that stated period. It provides really important certainty for the other party, the offeree, gives them proper time to consider without the rug being pulled out from under them.
Right, certainty. And online auctions, those can get pretty heated, bids flying everywhere. Can a bidder just withdraw their offer mid-auction if they get cold feet?
Generally, no. In online auctions, a bidder cannot withdraw their offer until the auction session actually concludes. And what's more, they might not be able to withdraw even after the session ends if the seller specifically said the bid was binding for a certain period, or if that's just the local custom. It really reinforces the seriousness of making a bid in that environment.
Okay, let's talk about the actual digital handshake then. The ijab, offer, and qabul, acceptance. We do this constantly online, maybe without thinking. How is consent actually expressed and legally recognized in an internet contract according to the standard?
Well, the standard is pretty flexible here. It basically acknowledges any method that clearly indicates mutual consent. So, any way the parties show they agree, that's valid for expressing offer and acceptance online. It just boils down to unmistakable intention.
So an email could be an offer, but what exactly makes an electronic message a true binding ijab, an offer, and not just, say, an ad? That feels like a crucial difference online.
It absolutely is crucial. An electronic message, email, website display, whatever counts as a true ijab if it clearly lays out all the rights and obligations involved. And, critically, if the sender does not keep the right to reject the contract after the other party accepts, if the sender can still say nope, even after you've clicked I agree to their terms, then it wasn't a binding offer from them in the first place.
Okay. So if I see a price online, but then somewhere in the small print, the website says, we reserve the right to cancel your order, that's essentially just an invitation for me to make an offer, not a binding offer from them.
Exactly that. If a message doesn't detail everything, or if the sender keeps that right to reject even after you accept, it's just an advertisement. Or maybe an invitation to treat, as they say in law. It's not a binding offer. It would need a whole new, full offer and acceptance process to become a real contract.
Got it. So what about the simplest interaction? Clicking an accept button, the classic online move, does that count as a proper qabul and acceptance?
Yes, clicking an accept button on a website is considered a valid qabul, a valid acceptance, provided, that is, the website system doesn't then require some further confirmation step. If it does, then acceptance only really happens after that final step is completed.
And I imagine to help prevent mistakes, those accidental clicks, there's probably a recommendation for the institutions running these websites.
Yes, absolutely. The standard emphasizes that it's recommended for institutions to put confirmation procedures in place on their websites. That "are you sure" step. This helps prevent errors from users. It shows a proactive, kind of user-centric approach to protecting the transaction and making sure everyone's clear.
Okay, this all leads to the really critical moment. When is the online contract actually formed? Is it when I click send on my acceptance, or maybe when the other person reads my email?
The contract is formed the instant the qabul, the acceptance, is issued by the offeree. It doesn't matter whether the offerer knows about it immediately or not. As soon as acceptance is sent, the deal is technically done. This really simplifies the digital interaction, doesn't it? It sets a very clear point of commitment from the acceptor's side.
Wow. Okay. So the contract's basically done the moment you hit send on that acceptance or click that final confirmation. Simple. Now, what about kabud, that concept of possession or receipt? In the physical world, it's easy you hand over the goods. How do you get your digital hands on something online in a way that satisfies this traditional idea?
Right. This is another area where you see this fascinating adaptation of traditional legal ideas to the digital world. COB, possession or receipt, in internet contracts can happen through any customary means. Any way that people usually understand achieves either actual or constructive possession. The key is that the method has to be commonly understood, accepted as giving you control over the thing.
Like, okay, say I buy some software online or an ebook.
Precisely. For digital items, software, data, ebooks, music files, CAB is considered achieved when the buyer downloads them from the website to their own computer or device after the contract is done. That act of downloading for these intangible things, that signifies possession and control. It's the digital equivalent of taking delivery.
Makes sense. Are there any special cases, though? Situations where immediate possession is still required, even online?
Yes, there are. The standard makes sure to reiterate this. Immediate CAB, actual or constructive, it's still required right there in the same contract session for specific things. Currency exchange is the big one, also gold and silver. This ensures those particular traditional requirements, which are there to prevent specific problems like interest or uncertainty in those specific trades, are still met even when you're dealing online. It preserves the essence of those transactions.
Okay, preserving essential rules even online. Now, this deep dive wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about the digital Fort Knox, right? How our online financial lives are actually protected. Let's start with safeguarding digital assets and data. What are the core protections outlined in the standard?
Yeah, this area is absolutely critical today, isn't it? The standard is quite clear. Commercial websites and the data on them are explicitly considered proprietary rights. They belong to their owners, which means infringing on them, hacking them, stealing data that may warrant compensation. And institutions, they are obliged. They have to implement available customary measures to protect their websites from attacks. That's to safeguard their own rights and, crucially, the rights of their customers.
And what about our personal data, customer data? Is there a strong stance on privacy?
A very strong stance, yes. It's explicitly forbidden to infringe upon customer data that's transmitted over the network. And it's forbidden to sell it or transfer it to third parties without explicit, clear permission from the data owners themselves. That's a fundamental privacy protection right there.
Okay, that's good to hear. But what if, despite precautions, an attack or data theft does happen? What then? Is compensation due?
Yes. If an attack or data theft occurs, compensation is due. And the standard is quite comprehensive about this. The compensation covers direct financial damage, but also actual lost profits. Experts would help estimate this. And the claim for that compensation, it can be made at any time after the infringement becomes known, subject, of course, to any relevant laws that don't contradict Shari'ah principles.
Who's actually held liable for that theft? Is it the hacker? The website owner?
Well, for theft of money or confidential data from a protected site, liability falls first on the direct perpetrator, the hacker, the thief. If, for some legitimate Shari'ah reason, the perpetrator can't be held liable, then the one who caused the act is liable. However, and this is a really significant point, the website owner is generally not considered liable if they took reasonable customary protective measures, unless they explicitly guaranteed protection under all circumstances, which is rare. This encourages strong security, but acknowledges that, perfect security is almost impossible.
Right, reasonable measures. Okay, now, verifying identity online. That sounds like a huge challenge, especially now with deepfakes, sophisticated phishing. How does the standard tackle this critical need to confirm who you're actually dealing with online?
It's recognized as a foundational concern, absolutely. Institutions must take all possible precautions and measures to verify the identity of their online customers, and also to ensure they're actually eligible, legally capable of entering into valid contracts. This protects the institution's funds, yes, but also ensures the legality of the whole thing. And to help with this, electronic signatures are explicitly considered valid under Shari'ah. They're a valid way to verify identities, provided they are legally recognized as proof where the transaction is happening.
And what if, despite all that, something goes wrong? Forgery, fraud, maybe just an honest mistake about someone's identity is proven later on?
If forgery, fraud, or an error in identity or qualification is proven, the other party has the right to rescind the contract, to cancel it. And proving it, well, that relies on the general rules of evidence, just like in any traditional legal case.
This brings up a really important point about consumer protection. especially with what we often call adhesion contracts online. You know, those long terms and conditions you just click I agree to because you can't negotiate them anyway. I mean, who hasn't just blindly clicked accept on a new app or website, right? In Arabic, they're called uqud al-idhan.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a common experience, isn't it? And it's precisely what this standard addresses. What's really remarkable is how it tackles this very modern problem, something many legal systems are still, frankly, grappling with. A huge chunk of online contracts are indeed these adhesion contracts. The offer, the terms, they're standardized, aimed at the general public, and the company sets the terms unilaterally. You can't change them. This is especially true if they relate to essential goods or services people need, and the company has a monopoly or, significant market control. We're not just talking minor clauses here. These can be contracts for vital services, where you, the consumer, have basically zero bargaining power.
Okay, so if I feel like I have no choice but to accept these terms, how am I protected from unfair stuff hidden in there?
This is where state oversight becomes absolutely critical, according to the standard. These adhesion contracts must be subject to state oversight before they're even offered to the public. The goal is to ensure fairness and to nullify any terms that are unjust to the party who just has to adhere, to accept. Now, if the price in one of these contracts is fair and the terms aren't unjust, then the contract is valid and binding.
But what if, after all that, the terms are unfair or the price is outrageous? What can the consumer actually do then?
Well, if the price is unfair, what's called Gabenfahush, meaning gross deception or exploitation, or if the contract terms are oppressive, then the adhering party, the consumer, has the right to go to court. They can appeal to the judiciary and ask either to annul the contract completely or to modify the unfair terms to remove the harm. This is a really powerful consumer right embedded right there in the standard. It provides a crucial check against potential exploitation in these take-it-or-leave-it situations.
That's really significant. Okay, and finally, let's touch on a scenario almost everyone's faced online. You order something, and when it arrives, it's, well, not quite what you saw or what was promised. What kind of protection is there if the delivered item is different from the online description or picture?
Yes, another common issue. This highlights another really robust protection for consumers. It's called the option for defective description. If a contract was based on a description, maybe a photo, a prior viewing, or even a sample or model, and the item you actually receive is found to be different from how it was described or different from the model, then the buyer gets this option. It means they have the right to choose. They can either rescind the contract entirely, cancel it, send the item back, or they can proceed with it as is, or they can try to negotiate with the seller to get some compensation for the deficiency, for the difference. It's a very practical mechanism to ensure fairness between what you were promised in the digital marketplace and what you actually receive.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of the practical specifics, the how-to of Shari'ah Standard 38 adapting to the digital age. It's fascinating stuff. But let's just for a moment connect this back to the bigger picture. The standard, it wasn't just like pulled out of thin air overnight, was it? Tell us a bit about the journey to create it.
Oh, not at all. Not even close. And that's one of the most compelling things about it, actually. The rigorous multi-year process behind its drafting and approval. It spanned from 2006 all the way to its issuance in 2009. It involved multiple committee meetings, really extensive discussions with financial and Shari'ah experts, and even public hearings. There were over 30 participants noted in the standards background, people from central banks, financial institutions, big accounting firms, Shari'ah scholars, university professors. It truly highlights the thoroughness, the collaborative effort, the deep expertise that went into these rulings. It wasn't a quick fix. It was a very deliberate, comprehensive undertaking.
And it sounds like it wasn't just about making up new rules for the internet. It was more about applying timeless wisdom to these modern challenges, right? What are the fundamental Islamic legal principles that actually underpin all these specific rulings we've talked about?
You've absolutely hit the core of it there. These specific rulings aren't standalone. They're deeply rooted in fundamental Islamic legal principles, the Usul al-Fiqh and Maqasid al-Shari'ah. For instance, the basic permissibility of online transactions. That comes from the general principle that fundamentally all transactions are allowed unless there's a specific prohibition against them. Why? Because these transactions fulfill significant public interests, maslaha and Shari'ah fundamentally aims to care for the welfare of people. And the emphasis we saw on protecting data and identity, the careful regulation of those adhesion contracts, along in compensation for damages, all of that stems directly from core Shari'ah objectives, the maqasid, like protecting wealth, ensuring justice, and preventing harm, It provides a really compelling why behind the what. It shows how these principles are designed to foster trust and fairness in all dealings, whether they're face-to-face or digital.
And that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've really unpacked a lot here, haven't we? Illuminated the practical, the ethical considerations of online finance through this very specific lens of Sharia standard number 38. And it really demonstrates how, well, ancient wisdom provides this robust, genuinely contemporary framework for a just and secure digital economy.
It really does. It shows how deeply foundational principles can just seamlessly adapt to the absolute cutting edge. It's quite remarkable.
So, as you, our listener, navigate your own digital financial life, maybe just consider how these meticulously developed principles designed originally for a physical world offer such clarity, such protection in this complex, always changing digital landscape we live in now. It truly urges all of us, I think, to reflect on how timeless values can and maybe should guide our future interactions online.